Welcome to the first edition of the WiseTake DFS strategy videos. Today we're doing an MLB strategy video, and we're going to do how Matt makes his stacks. And of course, we're referring to the gentleman you see with me, WiseTake podcast regular and Daily Roto Sharks contributor, Matt Amon. You can find him on Twitter at MattAmon123. And of course, you can always find his Matt's Stacks article on Daily Roto Sharks. He writes that daily. He can tell you some of the stacks he likes on his articles, and he can give you an idea of what pitchers he likes as well. Matt, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. I'm excited for this slate. It's kind of a interesting slate. There's a lot of weather concerns, a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. So I'm excited to play today. There's some big tournaments, and I'm excited to get all my teams in there.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. I like the attitude. So just so you guys know that those of you who are watching, this isn't slate sensitive, right? Like, we're gonna use today's slate as an example. Today is Tuesday. It's April 25th. We're gonna use today's slate as an example, but we're hoping that this video can kind of serve as a timeless video for you, something you could refer to for years to come. Whenever you're setting your MLB lineups, you can kind of refer to this video and try to apply some of the things that Matt's going to go over with us today when you're setting your lineups every day. So don't think of this as something that's pertaining to this specific slate only. We're going to use this slate as an example, but we're hoping you can apply some of these techniques and some of Matt's strategies to your everyday lineup building routine. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about how your process typically goes?
Well, first of all, every slate is different. You know what I mean? Like, some slates there's lots of weather concerns, some slates there's not. Some slates there's really good pitching, and some slates it's all bad, like yesterday. So what I like to do is, and especially since I've been doing the pods, the night before, I'll look at the pricing and I will start to see where I want to go. And the morning of, I try to narrow it down to the 4 or 5 or 6 stacks I like the best. And then I also ask myself, what tournament am I playing today? How many entries am I going to do? And all those sorts of things. So today, for instance, I'm playing the $4 tournament on DraftKings, and my plan right now is to do 100 entries. So I've kind of narrowed it down to the 5 teams I like the best, and then I'm going to stack those teams 20 times each. And what I mean stacks for me is I only do 5-player stacks. I found for me that that's the best way to do it, and everything I've kind of studied and read has led me to believe that that's the best way to approach these super large field GPPs, which is what I like to play. So that's what I'm doing. I got my 5 teams ready to go today, and I can kind of walk you through my process of how I select those teams. We can do that if you want to switch to my screen. We can get right into how I select the teams that I choose.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to dive right in real quick. Just a quick disclosure. We haven't mentioned it just yet. I just realized that this video, Matt's going to be using DraftKings specifically. So what you're going to see is Matt's tactics for DraftKings. And you're going to watch him make a couple lineups on DraftKings. We'll do another video separately for FanDuel. It's obviously a different type of lineup construction. So just a full disclosure, this is a DraftKings strategy video. So also, Matt, before we dive in and show your screen, I did want to mention, so I believe we have initially it was a 14-game main slate. However, we do have one postponement, so we're down to 13 games. Matt narrowed it down to his 5 favorite stacks. The pitching is interesting. We got Clayton Kershaw all the way at the top, and then we have obviously some tournament flyers in the middle. So to keep that in mind, it's not a slate where you have multiple elite pitchers. You have one elite pitcher, and then you have probably one guy in a tier below him that's around the same range. And then under that, it's kind of a variety of different mixes between the mid to low range. So just to give an idea of what slate we're looking at. So Matt, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to switch it over to your screen now, and
okay.
Go ahead and begin your process.
Yeah, so what I like to do in the morning is I go game by game, and I try to narrow it down, to what I'm going to do. So if you see here, we'll just start right away with the first game, the Cubs and the Pirates. So I'll look at both pitchers, I'll research both pitchers and the lineups, etc. And I always look at the weather first. I kind of have my weather page that I look at. And you see, the weather's 64 degrees, the wind is blowing a little bit in. We know PNC is good for pitchers. So I come back here, and I'll say, okay, for instance, I like I like Kyle Hendricks a little bit, so I'll make a note on my page, Hendricks a little bit, and then Garrett Cole, kind of the same thing. I like Garrett Cole a little bit. I think his price is fair. The Cubs strike out a decent bit. It's certainly risky, but I'm going to use Garrett Cole a little bit. So I write him down. So I go to the next game. I go Marlins and Phillies. I look at the weather for today. It's crummy and it's risky. Where is it at? It's right there. So if you see here, it's 21 miles an hour wind blowing in and 66% chance of rain at first pitch, and it kind of holds that whole game. So whereas if there wasn't any concerns, I would want Velasquez. It's a little bit too risky for me, and then Chen just stinks. I wouldn't want to use it anyways. So this game, I'm just going to completely X off my list. I'm just going to avoid this game, and I'm just going to hope that it rains out. So I'm going to move on to the next game, which is Tampa Bay and Baltimore, and it's a little bit of the same thing. When you look at the weather and you kind of see, but this game's actually cleared up the last few minutes, so that's actually good. And these slates are ever changing in baseball. You might not like a situation, and then as you get closer, it kind of changes, so you feel a little better about it. So this is a situation I had some interest, actually a lot of interest in Wade Miley earlier in the day, and then I was kind of like, if it's going to rain, maybe I'll avoid him, blah, blah, blah. But if it looks like he's going to play, I'm going to use Wade Miley, and I like him a lot. So I'm going to add him to the list. And then on the other side, I'm not going to use a Rossmo. And now that the weather's good, maybe I will like some Baltimore bats, and I will like some Tampa Bay kind of hedging against Wade Miley. So I'm actually going to write Tampa and Baltimore on my list of teams to use. Now, they're not my favorite stacks. Like, they're not one of my main five. But now as I'm making my lineups, I'll know that Baltimore and Tampa bats are in play. So we go to this next game. And this is another game, if you look at the weather, I'm just going to X this game out because if you look 96, 95, 95% chance of rain. So I don't think this game's going to play. I'm going to gamble that it's not. And if it plays and it comes back to bite me, then that's the way it goes. So we go to the next game real quick, and this is one of my favorites. This is one of my five. I have Seattle. I think Jordan Zimmerman stinks. The weather's nice here. I'm not going to play Felix. So as you see, this is kind of what I do. I go game by game, and obviously there's a lot of research that goes on, between this, when I'm doing it off air. So you can see I have Fangraphs pulled up here, and this is Jordan Zimmerman, and I go through and I look at all the stuff. I like to look at strikeout percentage, walk percentage, hard hit. I like to look at splits. How is he versus lefty and righties? What's his fly ball percentage? Et cetera, et cetera. So I do that for every game. And then as I go through every game, and we'll just kind of go through, Seattle's one of my five. I love the bats in this Cincinnati-Milwaukee game, so that's two games that I'm in love with. This Texas-Minnesota game, I like the bats for both sides here, but they didn't quite make my cut for the five teams that I'm going to stack. So as we go through, I'm going to use a lot of the Minnesota and Texas bats, but they're not my main five teams. But it's good to kind of know that. So then here you have Duffy, who I really like at pitcher. You have this game. I like both pitchers, so I wrote them both down. I don't really like the hitters. Then you have the Coors game, which is always a big deal. But today I'm actually going to fade Coors because that's another game with weather problems. And not only does it have rain concerns, but it's really cold and the wind is blowing in. So if there was ever a good day to fade Coors, this would be one of those days. And kind of as I'm doing it too, I'm always looking at the price of the hitters. The price of the hitters, price matters a lot. And, when I see Bryce Harper at 6,100 and Daniel Murphy at 55 and Arenado at 54, I'm thinking this may be a spot where it's a good day to fade with all of these factors combined. And as I'm going through my day, I don't make my final decision until a couple hours before lock. What are the five teams I'm going to go with? What are the four teams I'm going to go with? So these are kind of the factors I'm weighing throughout the day. So today, because the weather's so bad, both of these games in a dome, Milwaukee and Cincinnati, San Diego and Arizona, are two games that I really like. So those, and the pitching stinks. So those are two games that I'm going heavy on. So yeah, I think that's kind of it for my process. Oh, one other thing that I do is I always use Fantasy Labs to kind of predict ownership. So I like to go in and just kind of and I know it's maybe a little blurry to see, but I just filter by ownership and I just click for the highest guys. And then you can kind of go through and see which teams are going to be popular. So it looks like right now Colorado and Washington are both still going to be the most popular in Coors Field. So that makes me happy because I'm fading that game. So it makes me happy that that game is going to have lower exposure. And I also will filter it by pitcher, so you can just kind of go see what the whole stack is going to be owned. So I can see right off the bat, here's the Padres stack. Here's all the pitchers facing Corbin, and you can see they're all going to be low owned outside of Will Myers and Austin Hedges, but still not over 10%. So that's good. And I just go down and I look at all the teams that I'm interested in. And if one of the teams I'm interested in is going to be super popular, then maybe I'll look to pivot. But all the teams I like today are going to be lower owned, and I like them. So it's just kind of a no-brainer that I should go with what I like if it's going to be low owned. So that's kind of it for my process. Condensing it into 5 minutes when it's really actually 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, so do you want to go into actually building the lineups?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive into the lineups, also there is another feature I wanted to talk about. Obviously, guys, I'm taking a moment right here. Check out the link in the description of the video to sign up for your Daily Roto Sharks cheat sheets. We aren't going to show the cheat sheets here because it is premium content. We don't want to ruin that. But Matt does look at those typically on a daily basis when he's also – they do weigh into his decision along with Fantasy Labs and all these other things. So it's very important. We're not going to show – we're going to do a separate video at some point about how to use the cheat sheets themselves. But we wanted to acknowledge that. On the other from there, let's go right into building these lineups, man. I'm going to switch back to the screen, and you can go ahead and start it up for us.
Yeah, you mentioned that we can't give away the cheat sheets because it's premium content. And yeah, I do use those, and it is much easier than kind of showing fan graphs here and having to grab every single stat that you want for every single player. It's nice that the cheat sheets have them all there, so you don't have. It's a big time saver more than anything. Yeah. So real quick, if you see, I don't know if you can switch back to me real quick. Can you see? Yeah, can you see this?
I'll move it a little bit to the. I think it's your right.
Right here.
Other way. I'm sorry, your left.
Okay. Yeah. So if you see this is just kind of the list I make with the teams I like and the pitchers I like, and then I kind of have symbols that I use to make me know how much I like them. And you'll see as we go how kind of it's relevant the way I do it. And then I have another sheet. I know this is kind of old school, but I'm a pen and paper type of guy. So if you see this other page, you'll see my 5 favorite teams, and then I write I'm going to do them 20 each. I like to make a game plan before I start. And this could change, but I like to have a plan in place. So you can see I like the Mariners and the Reds and the Brewers, and I'm going to do them 20 times each. So now if you'll switch to the other screen, you can kind of see where we're going. So are you ready for that?
I'm ready for you, Matt. Go ahead.
Okay. So we'll just start with the team that already has their lineup out, and that's the Mariners, one of the teams I like. So there's something that's kind of really annoying about the Mariners today, and that's number one is what's Kyle? Kyle Seager is out, and that's annoying because they put Taylor Motter in the 5 hole, and he's a shortstop, and then Gene Segura's back, and he's a shortstop, so I can't play them both together, which is super annoying when you're playing a stack. So usually what I'll do is if I'm doing 20 and the players are of similar skill, I'll just do 10 Segura, 10 Motter. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'll just make a note on my page that that's what I'm going to do. And so I'll just go right to it. And I'll just go Segura, Haniger, Cano, Cruz, and then Vogelbach, 2100, which is nice. So I'll just go 1 through 6 in this case without the 1 to 5. And then I'll kind of, sometimes I'll go plug in my pitchers next, and sometimes I'll plug in the hitters next. But I think to start out with, let's just kind of play with Kershaw because this is a really cheap stack. And let's go Waka, who's kind of my other favorite pitcher. Okay. So we see that gives us 35.66 left per spot. So I'll try to find one of my other favorite stacks and then make a double stack. If it doesn't work, it's not a big deal, but that's my preference right off the bat. So let's say Minnesota is the other team I like just right off the bat. So I'll kind of try to do a correlation there. So we got Castro at catcher. We got, let's do Kepler in the outfield I really like. And then that leaves us 3,300 for third base, and let's see where that leaves us. So that leaves us Moustakas, who I really like. Okay, and he's facing Dylan Covey, and he's leading off today. That's new. So anyways, that's a lineup I really like. You got my stacks 1 through 6, and you got Minnesota, who I really like. You got 2 players that could be maybe 4th and 6th in the lineup, so I like that. And then kind of just a one-off in Moustakas, who I like. All right, so we'll enter that. And then I'll write down on my paper, Kershaw, Walker, 1 through 5, and then maybe I'll take a note that it's Minnesota, even though it's only 2. All right, then I'll go back to the lobby. And a lot of days, we're still a few hours before lock, so a lot of days I'll reserve all 100 entries, but I haven't done it yet today, so we'll just kind of do it. Maybe we'll do a couple of each, of each team here. Okay, so let's say now I'm going to do Taylor Motter, okay? So I'm going to go right back, do the same thing, except with Motter instead of Segura. So now I have even more money to work with, so I'll do Kershaw again. And then maybe we'll do Garrett Cole and see what that leaves us, okay? So now let's add Oakland, who I like and is really cheap. All right, so let's do Voit. Let's do Ryan Healy, who we like. And then let's do Chris Davis, who crushes. Okay? All right, so that leaves us 500. So then I'll look to see if there's a more expensive pitcher that I can pivot that I like better. So there's Estrada, I like him too. And then kind of you have another correlating lineup that you like. All right, so that's another one. So I'll write down in the Motter section, Kershaw, Estrada, and Oakland. 2 through 6 and Oakland. Okay, and then I just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I'll go right back. I'll go Seattle again. I will go 3 through 7. And then you see as you just kind of go along, you'll get exposure to different pitchers you like, different hitters you like in those types of spots. Okay. So then we go, okay, what's the team that I like now? Let's see. What do you got? What do you got, Chris? You like anybody here?
Well, let's see. I like a lot of the same guys you like. What?
You want to get Texas in there? Let's see if we can get Texas in there. We like Texas.
Let's get some Texas, and I know you threw some Kansas City guys in there. I watched their total climb a little bit. I like a look at Kansas City a little bit more than I did probably before you started this video.
Okay, so let's go. We got Lucroy, we got Gallo, and then we got an open outfield spot at 3,000. So we have the option to. We can go Rua at 9. That's kind of interesting. So we got the 7, 8, 9 correlation. And then we got Kershaw and Cole. So I kind of like that. That's fun. All right, so I'll go with that. So then I'll write down again Kershaw, Cole, 3 through 7. And then I'll do Texas, 7 through 9. And I'll go back lobby. Do it again. And then I'll just do the same thing again, except maybe I'll do Segura this time. So we'll skip Haniger, and then we'll kind of get the same sort of thing. And then, the thing is, I like Kershaw so much today, and with this Seattle stack, we can afford him. So I'm just going to use him in every single team that I'm making, and we'll get our differential by playing these other pitchers. You know what I mean? So who else are we going to go with? It's interesting because I like San Diego a lot, but I also think there's a world that Corbin could pay off this 5,000 price tag. So I'm actually going to throw Corbin in here also and hedge against what I'm going to do with San Diego later. So I don't think it's a bad strategy to hedge. So if I'm going to have 20 San Diegos and Corbin gets blown up, like, cool, my San Diegos are doing great. If he pitches great and all my San Diegos are bad and I have him paired with all these other stacks, I just feel like if I focus on all the good spots, I'm going to get one of them right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point of a multi-mass entry, right?
Right. And you kind of just get a good overall plan of what you like. So let's see. We're getting the benefit of paying down for Corbin. So let's see if there's any spot here that we can pay up for to really like what we got. Maybe Baltimore is going to go really overlooked with that whole situation. So maybe we can get a Baltimore correlation. Oh no Castillo. All right. That makes me like it way less. All right, let's back out. Oh. Now you got me in a tough spot. Let's go Milwaukee. How about that? And now we can get anybody we want at catcher. So let's just go Wieters and Coors. I mean, I'm fading Coors, but if I have an open spot and I can afford it, it's still a good spot, so I'm not just going to ignore it. So I think that's fine. Kershaw, Corbin, 3 through 7, and Milwaukee. So you can just kind of see as I go along, what my overall strategy is going to be here. And I'm going to go all the way around. I'm doing 20 Mariner stacks. I'm not going to make you guys watch them all, but I'm going to go all the way through. I'm going to go, if we just go the next one, it would just be, this right here. And then as you can imagine, the next one will be one more down, and the next one will be one more down, and it just keeps wrapping around. So I get exposure to everyone on the team together. And, a lot of people will say, man, I don't want to play this Daniel Vogelbach. He stinks, or whatever the case may be. But he's super cheap, and he'll be low owned, and it allows you to pay up at all your other positions. So even though the guy's not very good and he doesn't have big upside, he allows you to get everything else. You know what I mean? And there's so many times in a tournament you'll see this guy, Gerard Dyson had a triple and a stolen base today, and he had 24 points, and he's 1% owned, and that kind of can catapult you, up the charts when nobody else has them. So I don't mind taking guys that aren't necessarily that good when they're in a good spot and their team's in a good spot. Because, if all these guys in front of them are in a good spot and they're all on base, well, who's going to be coming up to base with the bases loaded and one out? It's going to be this guy that you don't necessarily like.
We see it how many times? Always.
Yeah, all the time. So I just don't mind. If I like Seattle, I'm just going to play all the guys, especially if they're one of my main 5 teams. So I don't mind. I just roll them all in, scramble them all up, and just try to make good correlation, because I think in baseball, in tournaments, in fantasy baseball, correlation is the number one most important thing. So that's just kind of what I try to do, is just make sure everything is correlated. So let's see. Now we're at second, third. So let's do the full game stack here with Detroit. Second, third, and then Tyler Collins, and then see where that leaves us. Looks like that might leave us with too much. Oh, no, look at that. Kershaw and Duffy. Isn't that pretty? And the thing is it's like, hey, this lineup is full of a bunch of trash hitters. But, not really. You got Kinsler and Castellanos, Cruz and Motter, and you feel so safe with Kershaw and Duffy. And this lineup build is a contrarian lineup build. So I like that. That's fine. So we go.
I think it's interesting what you just said. Contrarian lineup build. And now, in that particular case, you didn't really use too many players that we figured to be chalk. But even if you did, if you decided to even stack cores in that game, a game that we expect to be fairly chalky, if you notice what Matt did is he left himself. He said he used a contrarian build. So it's not necessarily the players don't always have to be all contrarian. If you want to play the chalk, you can. But it's very important that you differentiate elsewhere so that you can do what Matt just said. Make it a contrarian build.
Right. Yeah. So, there's so many different ways to do it, and a lot of the top players use these lineup builders, and I do sometimes when I play in smaller tournaments, and maybe we can get into that in a later video. But when I'm playing these kind of, this $4 isn't a big buy-in, but when you're doing 100 lineups, it kind of is. I prefer to make them by hand to get exactly what I'm looking for and get the exact amount of exposure to everyone that I want. Kevin Roth with a weather update. I always like to look at that to kind of make sure whatever my assumptions are is actually the case. Nothing important yet. Okay, so what should we do? You want to move on to another team? Okay, so it looks like we got some Cincinnati, Milwaukee. Oh, both lineups. All right, so we'll do some of these. All right, so let's just start out with Cincinnati. It looks like all the normal suspects in there. Okay. And then we just go right back to the same thing. And this might force us to be a little bit more interesting because these teams are more expensive than Seattle was. So this might force us in to get contrarian or different or whatever. Do we want to pick on Garrett Cole a little bit with the Cubs? I think they could do it. All right. Okay. And that's kind of also a hedge off. I used him. I like trying to use these guys that are going to be close together in the lineup. So when I see Contreras at an open spot and he's hitting 7th, and I have shortstop and outfield, and I know they're 5, 6, 7 fit into those spots, then I just kind of just go right to that and just see if it works.
Matt, can you explain to everybody what your hedging strategy typically is? I noticed you mentioned that you did play Cole in a lineup already, and now you're going to hedge and you're going to play some of the Cubs. So just explain what your philosophy is on hedging.
Yeah, I mean, it's baseball. Anything can happen. So just because I like Cole doesn't mean I can't also think that there's a world where the Cubs go off. So just like I said, with Corbin, and I'm going to stack the Padres, 20 times, I don't mind using the players, in the spot I think is good. So I'll just kind of play both sides, especially when I'm doing so many lineups. So I mean, I think it's totally fine, and I actually think it's smart to hedge. To hedge, and keep your options open. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now I end up with Kershaw, and I end up with JC Ramirez, who I think is fine and can have a good night. Oakland's not that good, and it's a great ballpark, and blah blah. So I mean, I think this is fine, and I think it correlates. You always kind of ask yourself the question: am I fine with leaving 600 on the table? For the correlation. Or would I rather sub Jason Hayward out at 3,100 or Addison Russell at 34 for a guy that's 4,000 or a guy that's 600 more? So sometimes I'll look and see, does the guy at 3,700, do I like Seth Smith enough to kind of knock out the correlation? And it's always kind of close for me. And sometimes I will and sometimes I won't. So let's just say for now I keep the correlation and I go with this. So then I write down Kershaw, JC, 1 through 5, and Cubs 5 through 7. So I kind of know what I got, and I don't do anything that's too close together. Okay. We go right back to the Reds. Peraza, Votto, Duvall. Okay. And then we're back. It's so annoying when the spot you have open in every lineup is the catcher. It's fun. It's fun when you kind of get all the way around and you get to the catcher spot being full, and you can one-off, fun positions like first, third, and outfield. But these spots are never as fun. All right. All right. Let's go hedges. And then you get to shortstop. I'm not going to correlate with Eric Ibar because he's just not good enough for me. But I will correlate with Hunter Renfroe because I think he's good, and I think they'll probably bat close in the order, maybe 5-6 or 6-7. So we'll go with that. And then we will see if the pitching. Let's go different this time. Let's go Duffy and let's go Estrada. And then we got 3,700. We see if there's anyone that we like there. Ooh, they got Hernan Perez at shortstop today. That's nice. In the same game. So we'll go with that. Duffy, Estrada, 2 through 6, and San Diego a little bit. Yeah, I mean it's not super exciting to just sit here and watch me do this, but I think it's interesting to kind of get a perspective on, you know, how I go about doing it. And truthfully, this has been the same strategy I used the last few years that has gotten me a ton of good results. And I kind of think it gets you a good mixture of players in good spots, players in good matchups, combined with guys that are in low ownership. You know, and I just try to always use everyone that's kind of in my player pool and not use anyone that I don't like. So I'm okay with using anybody as long as, you know, they're in one of the good spots that I like, if that makes sense. Okay. So let's go Milwaukee again. I like to go as many of the game stacks as I can. You know, so if Cincinnati's playing Milwaukee, I like using the same team a decent amount of time. Because I feel like, you know, when teams kind of go, they score high, it seems like sometimes the other team kind of goes with them. I know it, you know, maybe doesn't make a lot of sense, but I definitely feel like there is something there sometimes. Yeah, and I hate it when you get to these spots where nothing kind of fits right. So then sometimes you might have to back out of what you've done and do something else. Let's go Duffy. Let's go Wade Miley. And that still gives us plenty. Second base. We like. Let's go Odor, Mazzara, hitting close. And then Lucroy. Duffy. Miley. 3 through 7, and Texas. All right. What do you think? Go over to Milwaukee? Okay. Just kind of give everyone kind of a different view of the different pricing. Milwaukee is the most expensive of the ones we've done so far. But look at that. We still have the same catcher, shortstop, and outfield. Boo. All right, let's find another spot we like. Let's do Minnesota again. Because I think you can get 3 guys right next to each other. Because Polanco usually hits right next to Castro, 5-6. And then maybe Grossman will hit 5. He could hit 2, though. But it doesn't matter. It's close enough. And then Duffy, what does Duffy give us? All right, let's go Waka. And then maybe pivot off Polanco to somebody better. Segura, who we also like. And we got that. I like to use the salary. You know, it does pain me to leave, you know, 600-800 on the table, especially if one of the guys I like isn't that great.
I know, it's interesting you say that because I think that on FanDuel that could kind of work against you more so just because of the fact that it's so easy to fit whatever players you want. But on DraftKings, I think it's important. You know, I typically don't like to leave salary on the table at DraftKings either, just because the pricing is so strict that it's typically harder to leave salary on the table and be comfortable with your lineup. So I think that's a common strategy for DraftKings for sure, is trying to use your salary in the most efficient way possible while maximizing it.
Right. Yep. Yeah, you guys, I mean, I think you can go overboard with having everything have to be correlated. All right, Duffy and Cole. It's nice when the things that you're trying to do just fit together. And it gives you exactly what you want. 2 through 6 and Seattle. Now I go right back to it. Milwaukee, Bronshaw. It does pain me to make a Brewer stack without Thames, but with as hot as he's been. But when I get done wrapping around and I get everyone with everyone, I will favor the guys that I do like in this situation and leave the guys out I like less. So when I come back around and say it takes me 10 to get everyone paired kind of with everybody, then when I come back around, I'll favor more of Thames, Braun, Shaw, who I like in this matchup, and I'll be less likely to use like Keon Broxton, who's been cold, or whoever I don't like as much. Like I'll probably use Pena a little more just because I talked about it's a pain to fill catcher. So I might use him a few more times wrapping back around. But first and second is kind of fun. Let's do Arizona, who we like, and then we'll go Goldie. I would assume it's going to be Drury tonight, and then it's going to be Tomas. But then I might come back again later and do the same type of guys and do Pollock instead of Tomas. And if the pitching leaves us 300, I might pivot back to Pollock. So we'll kind of see what it gives us. And we'll just use Kershaw and JC, who we haven't used with the Brewers. 7 and Arizona. All right. It is tough to do this before lineups come out, to kind of guess, because you end up with just so much editing to do, and then the correlations all kind of get knocked off. So I do like to wait until the lineups are out to start building. That's why I said like a lot of days I'll reserve it. I like to come back here and I always see if there's anything that's happened, on the lineup page on Fantasy Labs on Twitter. You can kind of see the lineups as they come out. You see Matt Carpenter is suspended for some reason. I don't know why. But he's not in the lineup, and he was originally. You can see the Coors lineups are out to see if there's anything interesting in there. Everything looks standard. Okay. So we'll go back here. And it is good, I think, I would talk about again, using everyone in the lineup that you like, getting exposure to everyone. Because, like this lineup, it doesn't have Braun or Thames, who, if the Brewers do go off, are the most likely to have big games. But they're the most expensive too. So doing it this way again is going to give you exposure to Kershaw or whoever who you might not get exposure to in, if you only use the expensive guys. And again, it's baseball, so anybody can have a good game. All right, let's go. Who do we want to use this time? Mark Reynolds is fairly priced in Coors today, 4,400. Let's go back to Texas. Let's do Napoli, Odor. And 4,500. What do we got? Texas? All right. Outfield's too valuable to punt that deep. Let's do. Oh, Adam Jones feels a bit overpriced. Let's go the same game and let's go Duvall. So you will kind of get a sense as you go along. You'll end up, a lot with kind of the same sort of one-offs because you like them over other guys. And, I want all my lineups to be different, but still, if I like a guy more than another guy, I'm going to try to use the guys I like more than the guys that I like a little bit less, if that makes sense. Okay, so Kershaw, Corbin, and 4 through 8. And Texas. Okay. So on to the next. What do you think? Do you want to keep on going with Milwaukee, or should we do something else? Well, normally I build all of one team all the way through. So normally I would start with the Mariners. I would do all 20 Mariners before I would move on to the next team. But for the purpose of the video, I did 5 Mariners, I did 3 Reds, I did 4 Brewers, and the last 2 I'm doing, San Diego and Arizona. Their lineups aren't out yet. And like I said, I do prefer to wait for the lineups, to build, because it's just, too many guys just sit out randomly. And also, if it ends up like yesterday, I loved Arizona, and then Goldschmidt was just out randomly. And when a guy like that is out, it just kills my interest in the stack so much. Because not only is he a good player, he just affects everybody in the lineup. And I just think a guy like that, when he's out, it hurts their projection as a team like so much. It might change me completely to where I say, you know what, I'm going to kick Arizona out of my favorite teams, and I'm going to pivot to Texas, who was kind of my last team that missed the cut. You know what I mean? So that's why I like to, before I start firing them in, I like to make sure that the lineup is out. And usually when I reserve the lineups, I always have enough time to do it. So what do you think? What do you think? Okay. All right. Do we want to guess on San Diego, Arizona? All right, let's just wait. Let's just go. I mean, I think everyone's probably getting the point of what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Let's see, 5 through 9. We'll just do this just for the heck of it. Okay. All right. All right. So this is fun. We got first base, third base, and outfield. Do San Diego again. First base, third base is who? Schimpf. But he might not start lefty on lefty. He probably will, though. And he'll be lower owned because of it. So we'll go Schimpf, and then we'll go Margot. How about that? Margot's really cheap. Can't do that. Can't do that. This is always tough. Like, I always am like, when 2 pitchers are going against each other, like, it's hard to take them because it kind of limits their upside a little bit, but not enough to make me not want to do it, I don't think. But I would prefer not doing it if I don't have to do it. So let's do this, and then let's see if there's a San Diego outfielder that we feel fine with at 3,400. Yeah. I wonder if Jabari Blash gets the start today against the lefty. Maybe he does. All right. Let's throw him in there, and then let's see what that gives us. So you can kind of see how I'm going to play with my lineup to make it work the way I want it to. All right, let's just do this. Let's put these 2 in, and then let's just pivot to another random outfielder that we feel fine with. We don't like Abby. Oh, here's this Jorge Bonifacio guy that the Royals just called up that they're high on, hitting in the 6 hole for 3,100. Nobody's going to play him against Covey, who stinks, so I will play him. So I think that's interesting. Duffy, Marco, and San Diego. 5 through 9, 5 through 1, San Diego. So yeah, I mean, you kind of get what I'm doing here, and I'm just going to keep going all the way around the horn until I have 20 of each, and just kind of make sure that I get exposure to every single spot I like. You can't cover all your bases, but you can get pretty close to covering all your bases in all the spots that you like. And that's what I try to do. I try to come up with a game plan that I feel is really good for that day to take advantage of all the good spots. So if any of those good spots go off, then I'm going to have a good chance to win the tournament or be in the hunt. So this is a good spot to use the double game stack, I think. And once you do this a lot, you really learn all the players, and just kind of, it just opens up to where your eye just kind of goes right to what you like. Duff, Cole, and 6-2, and Cincinnati. See what new lineups are coming out. Nothing. They're just trying to get us to buy their stuff. I hate it when it's like 5 minutes till lock and they put out like, come join us on the video. It's like it's 5 minutes till lock. Only notify me if a guy's scratched that matters. And then advertise your stuff 3 minutes after lock. But they probably know that that's when everybody's most on their site, so they get the most bang for their buck. Does that make sense? All right, catcher third, and outfield. Let's go back to the Oakland one. I think Oakland's catcher third and outfield is interesting tonight, especially because I expect there'll be 3, 4, 5 in the lineup. And I like that, and nobody's going to play these A's, and it's going to allow us to pay for pitching. No, it doesn't. Boo. A lot of times you end up in these things, you end up sticking to kind of the same pitchers, even if they're not necessarily your favorite pitchers. That's when I will try to pivot, and then I'll just change my opinion of what I want it to do. You gotta be flexible. Let's go. Should we go Coors Field here? We're not gonna be able to. We're not gonna be able to afford it. All right, let's do this. Voigt, we still like, and then Mazzara. Okay. So when I get done with all my stacks for the day and we get closer to lock, then I'll kind of come to lineups, the lineup page. And I usually spend about my last 30 minutes. I try to get done 30 minutes before so I can make sure I get to this point. And I kind of go through and I make sure the exposure to everybody I have is about what I want. So I'll say, okay, Duffy 53%, maybe that's more than I wanted. So I might, try to go through and change some exposure. Or I go through, if it's real close to lock and I'm kind of in a pickle, then I'll go through and make sure nobody's out. But when I give myself plenty of time, I will come down here, I'll get Grossman. You see he's out of the game. So I will pivot back and I'll see who else I like better to take that spot. And obviously you want to always make sure that you're not going against your pitcher. Okay, so I get Kepler, and that looks fine. Yeah, so I usually spend the last portion of the before lock on this page to make sure. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I have all these pages open. Obviously, about 20 to 30 minutes before, I'm really going to be checking on all the weather too. Kevin Roth is the guy I follow on Twitter from Roto Grinders to make sure. I think he's the best for weather, so I follow him. And if there's some problem that I'm not comfortable with, then obviously I'll pivot off, whatever players. If it's Wade Miley, for instance, and I decide, that's too risky, then I always try to keep a pivot in mind for, what I'm going to do. So if I'm not going to use Wade Miley because it's too risky, then I'll go out like Michael Walker and I'll plug him in instead. But for now, I feel fine with that situation.
Okay. Matt, we definitely appreciate your time. As you guys can see, Matt kind of simplified the process for you. Obviously, he spends a lot of time doing his research. I know he kind of made it seem fairly simplistic the way he plugs in, but the reason he's able to plug in these players and the reason that he knows where to go for these stacks is because he does put in the time and the research. So if you don't have the time to do the research yourself, Matt already told you he uses the Roto Sharks cheat sheets, the Daily Roto Sharks cheat sheets to help him condense that, simplify the research process. And also, you can find the stacks that he likes over at Daily Roto Sharks under Matt's stacks. This video was specifically, again, it was for DraftKings. And I hope you realize the whole point. It's not just about GPPs. It's about mass multi-entering these GPPs and how to make these lineups by hand. Matt did mention that from time to time, depending on the slate, he will use lineup builders and whatnot to make the process quicker. However, that'll be a whole other video that we show you for sure. So be ready for these videos. We're gonna make a few of these, especially with Matt here. He's gonna show us some of his different tournament tactics and strategies. We definitely appreciate your time, Matt. It was a pleasure having you on. Hopefully these guys can use this video for years to come and constantly refer back and kind of get an idea and maybe even pick up some of the traits themselves and adopt some parts of your style. So appreciate it.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter. If you only see, I usually only list 2 or 3 of my favorite stacks, because I don't want to be writing for 3 hours. But if you want to know, the other things that I think about the day, go ahead and feel free to hit me up.
And, of course, you could always find Matt on the WiseTake DFS podcast, which airs Monday through Friday. We record live shows on Sunday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunday night, we talk about Monday slate, so it will be available. If you can't catch the live version on Sunday night, it will be available for you guys to watch and listen to on Monday. Do me a favor and support the podcast. Click the link in the description. It'll take you to dailyrotosharks.com, and it'll take you exactly where you need to go to sign up for your cheat sheets so that you can start building lineups right away like Matt Amon here. So, Matt, good luck tonight. Hopefully you do well. We'll definitely keep an eye out for your results. And yeah, man, it was a pleasure coming on. Appreciate having you on. I appreciate it.
I'm only going to share the results if it was a winner, not show that I lose.
Sounds good. Hey, part of GPPs is taking chances, and
oh, man, I have plenty of losing days, but when we have a big day, we have a big day.
That's the thing that is most important for those of you who want to play tournaments. You got to realize you got to play plays that maybe you're not comfortable with from time to time, and you're probably going to lose most nights. What you're hoping for in tournaments is you're chasing those big wins. So yeah, you're hoping to lose a little from time to time, but then when you win, you're hoping to make up for all those losses, and that's the beauty of tournaments.
That's right. That's what we're going for.
All right. So for myself, CKO13, for Matt Amon, thanks again, and good luck.